Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night, completely unable to move a muscle? Your eyes are open, your mind is racing, but your body is frozen, held captive by an unseen force. This terrifying experience is known as sleep paralysis. For many, it's just a fleeting, strange moment, but for others, it's a descent into a living nightmare, filled with shadowy figures and a crushing sense of dread. Today, we're delving into 5 chilling, real-life accounts of sleep paralysis and exploring the scientific explanations behind these terrifying encounters. Is it just a glitch in our brain's sleep cycle, or something more sinister at play? Let's find out. Our first story comes from a college student named Maria. One night, while studying for exams, she fell asleep on her couch. She awoke suddenly. At the foot of the couch stood a tall, slender figure, completely black, like a void in the shape of a man. It had no face, no features, just an overwhelming aura of malevolence. She tried to scream, to fight, but no sound came out, and her limbs wouldn't respond. The shadow figure began to glide towards her, its form distorting the air around it. As it leaned over her, she felt an immense pressure on her chest, as if she were being crushed. The air grew cold, and a low, guttural whisper filled the room, though she couldn't understand the words. Just as she felt her last breath leaving her body, she snapped awake, gasping for air. The room was empty. So, what happened to Maria? Science offers a compelling explanation. Sleep paralysis occurs during the transition between sleep and wakefulness. Specifically, it happens when your brain wakes up before the rest of your body. During REM sleep, the stage where we dream most vividly, our brain paralyzes our Maselza mechanism called rematonia. This is a good thing. It stops us from acting out our dreams. But sometimes, you wake up while this atonia is still in effect. Your mind is conscious, but your body is still in sleep mode. This mismatch is the foundation of sleep paralysis. The shadowy figure Maria saw is known as a hypnagogic hallucination. These are vivid, dreamlike visions that occur as you're falling asleep or waking up. Because you're consciously aware, they feel incredibly real. The crushing sensation on her chest, that's also common. It can be caused by the paralysis of chest muscles, combined with the sheer panic of the situation, making it feel difficult to breathe. Next, let's hear from Kenji, a graphic designer from Japan. Kenji's experience has deep roots in his culture's folklore. He reported waking up paralyzed, a sensation he'd felt before, but this time was different. He saw an old woman with long, stringy gray hair and a menacing grin sitting on his chest. Her eyes were pure white, and she stared directly into his. He felt her bony fingers digging into his shoulders, pinning him to the bed. In Japanese folklore, this entity is known as the asterisk Kanashibari. Asterisk, which literally translates to bound in metal. It's an ancient spirit believed to pin people down in their sleep. Kenji felt this wasn't just a dream, it was an ancestral terror come to life. He could feel her weight, smell a musty, earthy scent, and hear her cackling softly right next to his ear. The ordeal felt like it lasted 4 hours before she finally faded away, leaving him trembling and drenched in sweat. The scientific perspective here is fascinating because it shows how our cultural beliefs can shape our hallucinations. The core experience paralysis, and a sense of presence is universal. However, the form that presence takes often reflects our personal and cultural background. For Kenji, his mind conjured the asterisk, Kanashibari asterisk, an image he was familiar with from folklore. For someone in another part of the world, it might be an alien, a demon, or an intruder. This suggests that during sleep paralyses, our brains pull from our deepest fears and cultural narratives to try and make sense of the terrifying, inexplicable sensations. The brain is essentially saying, I can't move. Something feels heavy, and I'm scared. What do I know that fits this scenario? And for Kenji, the answer was the asterisk. Kanashibare. Asterisk. Our third account comes from Sarah, a new mother, exhausted from caring for her infant. She experienced a particularly cruel form of sleep paralysis. She woke up, unable to move, and saw a dark, cloaked figure standing over her baby's crib in the corner of the room. A cold terror seized her. She was convinced this entity was there to harm her child. She fought with every ounce of her being to move, to scream, to protect her baby. But her body was a useless prison. She watched in horror as the figure reached a long, shadowy hand towards the crib. The scene was so vivid, so real, that she felt a primal, maternal panic like nothing she'd ever known. Then, just as the hand was about to touch the crib, her paralysis broke. She lunged out of bed and rushed to her baby, who was sleeping peacefully, completely unharmed. The figure was gone. This type of hallucination is particularly distressing and highlights another aspect of sleep paralysis. It preys on our deepest anxieties. For a new mother like Sarah, her greatest fear is something happening to her child. Sleep deprivation, which is common for new parents, is a major trigger for sleep paralysis episodes. Her exhausted brain, trapped between wakefulness and sleep, manifested her worst fear as a terrifyingly real hallucination. This isn't a supernatural attack. It's the brain's own fear response system going into overdrive under extreme stress and exhaustion. The feeling of helplessness is amplified tenfold when you believe a loved one is in danger. Our fourth story is from David, who had recurring episodes. His experiences were auditory. He would wake up paralyzed, and instead of seeing something, he would hear things. Sometimes it was footsteps pacing back and forth just outside his bedroom door. Other times, it was the sound of whispering voices, seemingly arguing in a language he couldn't understand. Have you ever wondered if curses are real? What if the line between a meticulously planned crime and an ancient, dark ritual blurred until it vanished completely? Today, we delve into a case that baffled investigators. A story where modern forensics clashed with something far older, far more sinister. This is the chilling story of a disappearance that left behind not fingerprints or DNA, but symbols of voodoo and whispers of a powerful curse. The story begins in the humid, quiet backwoods of Louisiana, a place where folklore is as thick as the bayou mist. Our story centers on Robert, a man known for his quiet demeanor and love for local history. He was a collector of antiques, a regular at flea markets, and someone who, by all accounts, kept to himself. One Tuesday morning, Robert didn't show up for work. His colleagues weren't immediately alarmed. He was reliable, but maybe he was sick. But when another day passed with no word, a wellness check was called. What police found wasn't just an empty house. It was the beginning of a mystery that would spiral into the heart of darkness. There were no signs of forced entry. Robert's wallet and keys were on the kitchen counter. His car was in the driveway. It was as if he had simply vanished into thin air. But as investigators combed through the house, a sense of unease began to settle in. In his study, amongst dusty books and maps, they found something that didn't belong. A small, crudely made doll lay on his desk. It was fashioned from twigs and cloth, with a rusty pin pushed through its chest. Beside it, drawn in what looked like charcoal, was a strange, spiraling symbol. This wasn't just a random trinket. It was the first clue that Robert's disappearance was anything but ordinary. The local police, more accustomed to petty theft and domestic disputes, were stumped. They brought in a specialist in folklore and cultural history from a nearby university. The professor's face paled when he saw the evidence photos. The doll, he explained, was a classic effigy, a puppet used in sympathetic magic. The symbol was a veve, a sigil used in Haitian Vodou to call upon a specific spirit, or a loa. But this particular veve was obscure, ancient, and associated with a loa, known for its unforgiving nature, a spirit of judgment and retribution. The air in the precinct grew heavy. This was no longer a simple missing persons case. The investigation pivoted. Instead of looking for a typical suspect, detectives started digging into Robert's life, searching for anyone with a connection to these practices. They learned that in the weeks before he vanished, Robert had become obsessed with a local legend about a buried treasure, supposedly protected by a voodoo priestess a century ago. He had spent his weekends searching the swamps, armed with old maps and a metal detector. Had he disturbed something he shouldn't have? Was this a warning? Friends recalled Robert mentioning a rivalry with another local collector, a shadowy figure known only as Boker. In voodoo traditions, a Boker is a sorcerer who serves the loa with both hands, meaning they practice both light and dark magic. This Boker was also rumored to be searching for the same treasure. Suddenly, the police had a person of interest, but finding him was like trying to catch smoke. He had no official address, no records, and was known only through whispers and fearful anecdotes in the community. He was a ghost. As days turned into weeks, more unsettling discoveries were made. During a search of the swamp where Robert was last seen, a search party found a clearing. In the center was a makeshift altar. On it were chicken bones, burnt out, black candles, and the same spiral veve from Robert's desk, this time drawn on the ground with white powder. There was also a personal item belonging to Robert. His favorite hat, pierced through with a sharpened piece of bone. The scene was staged, theatrical, designed to terrify. The message was clear. A ritual had taken place here. A ritual involving Robert. Forensics came back with nothing. The charcoal from the desk was from a common willow tree. The powder at the altar was simple. Cornstalk. The doll was made of materials found anywhere in the Louisiana woods. Every piece of physical evidence was untraceable. Generic. The perpetrator was either a ghost or a genius, leaving behind only the evidence the asterisk wanted asterisk to be found, the symbols of magic and fear. The case was growing colder, but the story was getting hotter, spreading through the town like wildfire. People were scared. Doors were locked earlier, and strange symbols were reported, imagined or real, on trees and fence posts. The psychological pressure on the community was immense. Was there a curse hanging over the town? Was a powerful boker walking among them? The police were caught in an impossible situation. How do you issue a warrant for a curse? How do you arrest a spirit? They followed leads on the mysterious boker, but every path led to a dead end. Some said he'd left the state. Others whispered he had transformed, becoming one with the shadows of the swamp. The police had a theory. This boker was a real person, using the community's belief in voodoo as a weapon of fear and misdirection. He likely confronted Robert, and the confrontation turned fatal. The ritual paraphernalia was a brilliant, terrifying smokescreen to cover up a standard crime. But there was no body. Despite extensive searches of the swamps, the bayous, and the surrounding woods, not a single trace of Robert was ever found. This is where the case transcends a typical crime story. Without a body, the official investigation stalled. The file remained open, but active leads dried up. For the law, it became a cold case. But for the community, the story was very much alive. Had Robert been the victim of a clever killer, using folklore as a cover? Or had he trespassed on sacred ground and fallen victim to a centuries-old curse, his body claimed by the swamp and a vengeful spirit summoned by a powerful boker? Years passed. The story of Robert's disappearance became a local legend, a cautionary tale told to children who wandered too close to the swamp. The treasure he was searching for was never found. The mysterious boker was never identified. The case remains a perfect, chilling enigma. It is a place where the rational world of evidence and procedure collides with the terrifying possibility of something else, something ancient and powerful that science can't explain. This case forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. How much of what we perceive is real? Is fear itself a kind of magic? The perpetrator, whether a man or a myth, understood the power of belief. They didn't just remove Robert. They infected an entire community with a story, a creeping dread that lingers to this day. The symbols and rituals might have been a smokescreen for a simple, brutal act, but they were so effective that they've left us with an unresolvable mystery. The truth, like Robert himself, seems to have been swallowed whole by the Louisiana swamp. So, what do you believe? Was it a calculated crime, hidden behind a veil of superstition? Or did Robert truly awaken a dormant power that should have been left undisturbed? Sometimes, the most terrifying monsters are not those that leap from the shadows, but those that plant a seed of doubt in our minds, making us question the very nature of reality itself. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into the unknown. If you're fascinated by the intersection of true crime and the unexplained, please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps our channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next dive into the darkness. Until next time, stay curious and be careful what you go searching for.